Good morning. Happy Thursday. Happy almost Friday. Good morning, TikTok. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, YouTube. My energy's a little down today because I didn't go running, but you guys come on in. Today, we're going to talk about a really, really important topic, which I think a lot of times is overlooked because people don't know what their options are, because attorneys don't know that it's a relief that is available to to their potential clients. But we're talking today about moving from that temporary 2-year green card over on to your permanent 10-year green card, and what are the different ways in which you can qualify. And when you run into a situation where your spouse that gave you that 2-year green card thinks that they can continue to manipulate, control, and determine what your future is in this country as a human, etc. So, if this is your first time on my show, Green Cards and Jollof, welcome. If you are a regular, thank you for tapping in. I sure do love the energy, and I love coming on here to answer your questions every day, to engage with you guys, feel the vibe, and all that. So, let me adjust my frames because, hey, Bianca girl, good morning, girl. How are you over there in Boston? Good morning, darling. Good morning. So we're going to talk about this, 2-year green card over to the 10-year green card and all who qualify. I'm going to give some of y'all folks who are still sleeping a little bit more time to tap in. How is it that we have more viewers on TikTok than Instagram right now? How is that even possible? You know what I'm saying? So, Bianca, listen, the different frames I have, it's out of necessity. I lose them all the time. So I easily have about 10 pairs right now, everywhere. Home, car, office, playroom, gym, garden, patio. I have my glasses everywhere because I need them to function. Okay, so what is a conditional green card? A conditional green card is the green card that you get when on the day that that officer stamps that you are a legal permanent resident, your marriage is less than 2 years. Okay? So, for example, I always use me as an example because I got my green card through my husband, who is a U.S. citizen. When the day that I went to my interview and I was stamped as a legal permanent resident. TikTok got all the cloud right now. Look, and then we over here trying to get that cloud. So anyway, my marriage was less than 2 years, so I got a conditional green card. 2 years later, and one child in, I received a letter from USCIS that my conditional permanent residency, well, like a year and a half later, they sent me a letter saying that my conditional permanent residency was almost about to expire, and I had to now basically reapply for my 10-year green card and remove the conditions on my 2-year green card. What people don't realize is this is not just some simple process. You basically have to prove to immigration again that your marriage is legitimate and your marriage is real. So I remember we had to submit copies of everything that we had done within those 2 years. So we had had our child, our first son, Caleb. We had opened up bank accounts. We had made a lot of trips. We had done a lot of family trips together. We had credit cards. We hadn't purchased a home yet, but I believe we had moved into a different apartment at the time. So we were both on the lease. We had family events that we had celebrated. There were a lot more social media posts, a lot more cards. So many things had happened. So we submitted all those to prove that my marriage was legitimate. It was real. It was intended for us to have a life together. So I got granted my 10-year green card because my husband jointly supported me in removing the conditions to get my 10-year green card. Now, let's talk about situations where you get your 2-year green card, and within those 2 years, things completely fall apart. Your spouse becomes abusive. Your spouse disappears on you. You don't know where the hell your spouse has disappeared to. They are uncooperative. They are threatening to call immigration on you. They're reminding you that you being in this country is solely because of them. They have the power. And this is a topic today because I met with a beautiful young lady yesterday who has a 7-year-old son, and she came here from Liberia as a spouse. Her husband had filed for her, and she has a 2-year green card. Now it's time to remove the conditions. He has kicked her out. He's cheating on her. He treats her like crap. He threatens to call immigration, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, deprived her and her child of food, abusive to her son. So she has come to see me so we can remove conditions based on, one, she's divorced, so it'll be based on divorce. And another element she qualifies for is removing it based on extreme cruelty. So there are three other grounds in which you can remove conditions to get your 10-year green card. Divorce. If your divorce is final, it has to be final. Extreme cruelty and abuse, or hardship. So let's talk divorce. Say in those 2 years after getting married, you get your 2-year green card. And let's say like 8 months later, you divorce. Look, it happens. Listen, it's a 50-50 chance, right? Like all of us that sign up to get married, it's a gamble. 50% of marriages end in divorce, right? It's like one or the other. It's like literally a coin toss. If you get divorced and now you have to remove conditions, you have to show that, one, the marriage was entered into in good faith. Good morning over here on TikTok. All right. See, TikTok is a lot more engaging this morning, y'all. I'm over here on TikTok. Good morning, TikTok. Good morning. So your marriage has to be your divorce has to be finalized with a divorce certificate. If you file to remove conditions based on divorce and your divorce is not finalized, USCIS will not make a decision until the divorce is finalized. That's one. You also have to show that even though this did not work out, the intent was to have a life together. So show, all the commingling assets that you had, all the DMs, all the photos, all the trips, all the messages, everything that you had as much as you possibly can. The next option is the based on abuse. Thank you. Ikaro, is that Yoruba? I think it is. Ikaro means good morning, right? I think so. See, I'm Igbo, so I don't know what that is. Good morning, Regina. Good morning, Leda. So if you have to file the removal based on abuse and extreme cruelty, oh yeah, I love that question. Absolutely. The question is, can I file VAWA while I'm still married? Yes. Don't let me get to talking about the cases I filed where the spouses are still together, they have children together, and we've won because you can get VAWA even when you are still married. Absolutely. You can still live with your spouse. I have so many cases that we filed where, the marriage is still together, but one spouse is really being abused emotionally, psychologically, and the U.S. government understands that sometimes a spouse can't leave. Let me give you some statistics. The most dangerous time for a woman or an abuse survivor in a marriage is when they decide to leave. That's the most dangerous time. So that statistic kind of came up, and the demographic was women, but we know that men are also victims of domestic violence, right? And men also get abused. But the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence, by the way, is not just physical abuse. Domestic violence encompasses emotional, mental, sexual, financial, domestic violence. It has to do with a repeated pattern of behavior that is meant to subdue someone, and the other person has power and control. Okay, does that make sense? So, yes, the most dangerous time is when you leave. Anyway, so that's the second way you can remove conditions of extreme cruelty. The third way is hardship, right? So you have to show that if you now say your spouse just disappeared, like they won't sign the form. They're like, give me this or else, do this or else. So they may not necessarily be like abuse and extreme cruelty, but they're just kind of like playing around, calling them, you don't know where they are. Then we show that, well, you're here with these children or whatever. You've left your home country where maybe you could be persecuted if you go back. They engage in female circumcision. I don't know. Whatever the case is, if you were to return back to your home country, you would face extreme hardship. And so we can also remove conditions based on that. But in our office, most of our cases are based on abuse or extreme cruelty. Now, the extreme cruelty ground is very much like VAWA. It is, I mean, it's adjudicated at the Vermont Service Center by the same officers, the exact same thing. So let me tell you guys about this consultation I had yesterday. This man went to Liberia, met this woman, gorgeous, gorgeous. She's so pretty. Brought her back to the United States and basically held her hostage. Oh, thank you, Marzipe. I appreciate you for being on here and listening to me talk. So he brought her to the United States and basically, I don't want to say he enslaved her, but it was giving very much that energy based on what she told me, and the pictures that she showed me. So he kept her in the house. He wouldn't let her leave. She was only allowed to go to the mailbox and return back from the mailbox. He was really mean to, yes, you're a good fan. Yes, thank you. He was mean to her son. He would call her son fat. He would deprive him of like basic necessities in the home. Like just, I have 3 children, 3 boys. Like the kids just want to go out and play video games. And if they go to the store, they may pick a toy or 2 or 3. I don't know. My kids like a lot of things. But the point is, children are children, right? He would make the child feel so bad about wanting things that children want. And he would fat shame the child. Like when he would go in the kitchen and grab a snack. Like, you guys, I have 3 kids and they eat very cruel. Very, very cruel. Very cruel. And so he did all these things to her, and he would like video chat with other women in different parts of the world, different states, and they would send very graphic photos, and his girlfriends in other states would send him food. Like she would have to be there and receive the food from USPS frozen. I mean, just really, really just disrespectful, doing the most. And he would tell her over and over again, that I could really just call immigration and you are going to go right back to Liberia and never be able to come back. And that would terrify her because her life back home was very, very, like, she left Liberia for a reason, right? She was traumatized, had a really difficult childhood. She had endured trauma from the Liberian War. She was a very, very young girl. And so knowing that she had this kind of past lived experience, he used that to continuously traumatize her. So now she's come to me because we have to remove the conditions and give her 10-year green card, her and her son without her husband. As a matter of fact, he took her and her son to the airport about 5 months ago, gave them $450 and told them, bye, be gone, don't ever come back. Yeah, I'm waving to my dad. He's here right now. So yeah, that's cruel. So now she can remove conditions, get her 10-year green card, and move on and make a life for her and her son here in the United States without that asshole. That's what he is, an asshole. He is. How could you treat someone like that? How could you treat a child? How could you fat shame a child? How could you treat someone that you love? You brought her all the way from Liberia just to bring her here and treat her like trash? No. So we're filing her removal of conditions. I know, I pray all goes well likewise. And for me, I look at her son and it reminds me of my children. I couldn't imagine being in a situation where you're looking at your child and you feel helpless and you feel like there's nothing you can do. All right, guys. So that's all my rambling for this morning. What are your questions? Who is in a marriage that's just falling apart, where you deserve better, right? And your spouse thinks that they have this thing over your head where they can control you, they can manipulate you financially, even sexually. I get a lot of cases where, because the declarations that my clients all have to write for these abuse cases, I see a lot of things that their partners want them to do that makes them really uncomfortable. Hey, look, do what you do, okay? Everyone has their flavor, okay? However, some people are not comfortable engaging in certain behaviors in bed, like it's fine. Maybe one person likes certain things, but you don't know what they've been through. So you can't force someone to use like sex toys, to watch porn, to do that. You cannot do that. That's sexual abuse. Like it really is. Like, I don't care what you saw on Pornhub. Your partner is not into that. And you have to respect that. And forcing them to engage in that is abuse and actually a human rights violation. Okay, so guys, what are your questions? So what y'all got planned for the weekend? It's almost Friday. Thursdays are feeling a lot like Friday these days. So, once you get your 10-year green card, then while we're petitioning for that 10-year green card and we're waiting, once you hit that, if you're still married, once we hit that 3-year mark, then you can go ahead and file for your citizenship while it's still pending. Okay? All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about fraud indicators in marriages. Because even when we file a VAWA petition, whether you're still married or divorced or whatever, we still have to prove that your marriage was entered into in good faith, meaning your marriage was entered into for real. Like you didn't just enter the marriage, for immigration purposes. So here's some indicators. How quickly you got married. Now, indicators does not mean that the marriage is fake. It just means that if USCIS is seeing a pattern, they're going to want to start asking some questions, and they're going to probe further, and they may, kind of ask you some questions, right? How quickly you got married. How many, times you've been married. That's a good one. If you have a history of like marriage, divorce, and it looks like you're kind of like green card shopping, it's going to raise a red flag. They're going to ask questions, why are these marriages kind of happening in quick succession? Not to say you can't get married as many times as you want, but if you're running into all these marriages and they're ending up in divorce, and then you're only marrying U.S. citizens and green card holders, they're going to ask some questions. So definitely, if that's been the case in your marriage, doesn't mean that your marriage is not real. It just means that we have to prove over and beyond that this was legitimate. And the lack of evidence in VAWA cases is not a death knell. It's not a death knell. Not a death knell meaning it does not kill your case, because the truth is, my clients, most of them just don't have the access. They don't have the access. Oh, I just saw one of my clients just logged in. You know who you are. I actually have some good news for you. We have an interview scheduled. I'm not going to say who it is, but you're watching right now, and your interview has been scheduled in New York. I just got the notice yesterday, and I'm going to scan and I'm going to inform you. So I am really excited. Your interview has been scheduled for your green card. I won't say who it is, but you're watching me right now, and expect an email from Alejandra later today for your green card interview. Your VAWA has already been approved, and now we're on for your interview, and it's in September. So I'm so excited for you. That's awesome. So yeah, and I know you've been through a lot, but okay. Let's see. Yes, I know. Congratulations to that person who has an interview scheduled. And let me talk about this case. I'm just going to kind of touch on a few things with this case. This case came to me last year. Her previous attorney had filed her VAWA application and adjustment, and frankly, it was a complete disaster. So when she came to me, she was like, should we appeal? And I remember looking at the entire application, and I thought, what? Who did a lawyer file this? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, wow. There were like conflicting statements. There were friends and family who had written affidavits, but they really were not getting to the point. They weren't really focusing on what USCIS really wanted to see, which is basically talking about how you know this person, what you know about their relationship, and what you know about the abuse, and really establishing your credibility with detail. So I said, no, we're not appealing. I said, we're going to start all over. I said, we're just going to start all over. I'm going to follow my magic sauce my formula that I've been using to win for the last 12 years. That's what we're going to do. We're going to start all over. Yeah, girl. So we started all over. This was last year. Her vow was approved about 4 months ago, and now we have an interview scheduled in New York. So I'm excited. Here's a question. My friend is in a trap with her husband of 8 years, never filed for her, and she received a deportation already. That's why she's scared to go to the police. Oh no, honey. Later your friend needs to call me. Your friend needs to call me like yesterday. Let's get her sorted out. That is a classic abuse, control, manipulation, violence. No, your friend needs to call me so we can get her. We can request PD, prosecutorial discretion, to close her removal proceeding matter and file her VAWA petition ASAP. Oh, he tracks her phone. Later, send me a text. Let's talk. Oh, you're scared of him? Well, I'm not. I'm not scared of him. Let me tell you, abusers are cowards. They're they're legitimately, they're cowards. That's what they are. It's like the schoolyard bully. When someone finally stands up to them, they just kind of like quell and melt. I'm not scared of him. But your friend, though, let's talk later. Send me a text. Let's talk. We need to help your friend. We can't let. He has no control. Who is he? Like, what the hell? No. He's a coward. He's a little bitch. That's what the hell he is. All right. So, hi, Zycon Imagery. Hi, I am Demi Lola Sunshine. Good morning. Yes, please call me later. Let's talk. Let us talk. So, as I just mentioned, we just got an interview notice for a case that came last year. We basically just ripped it all apart and started all over. VAWA got approved. Now her interview for her 485. Let's talk about the green card interview, guys, particularly as it pertains to VAWA. When you go in for your green card interview, first, if you have an attorney, make sure that they have prepped you. Particularly if you have previous immigration applications, because they're going to ask you about all your previous applications. They're going to compare what you said in your I-485 for this VAWA, compare it to other applications. Because let me tell you, when you sit before a USCIS officer, their goal is to deny you or find a reason to deny you. That's their gatekeepers. Like, that's what they are. That's their job, right? So they're going through and they're looking for issues of fraud, misrepresentation to check off and say, you're inadmissible, you need a waiver, X, Y, and Z. So if you've had previous applications, make sure you remember. And even though you have a VAWA that's approved, you can still get hit with issues of fraud and misrep. So they'll go back and they'll look at your application that you filled out, your DS-160 before you entered the U.S. as before you entered as a visitor, a student, or however it is that you came in. And they're going to ask you questions. Did you said you didn't have children, but all of a sudden you got kids, and the dates ain't adding up because based on the dates, the kid should have been alive when you enter the United States, things like that. So make sure your information is consistent. The officer is not allowed to go back and re-traumatize you and ask you questions about your abuse. It's called trying to re-adjudicate. Yeah, I like to throw these big legal terms, right? It just basically means like they're trying to like process the I-360. That is not their job. One, they are not trained. Two, it is not their job. The officers that are trained to adjudicate the I-360 I-360 are in Vermont at the Vermont Service Center. So once they approve your VAWA with all the information in front of them, the only questions you should be asked at your VAWA I-485 interview are issues that would, make sure you're eligible to adjust your status. So admissibility issues of fraud and things like that. Occasionally they may kind of like push the envelope and start to ask you, so how did you meet your spouse? A few times, the interview's going okay and the officer I know has no ill intent, I'll just let them get away with it. But once they start to really push, I just kind of remind them that they need to stay in their lane and that they have no business engaging in that inquiry, because the VAWA is approved. And so questions about how my client met their spouse, questions about their relationship, questions about abuse, it ain't your job. It ain't your job. And you need to stay in your lane respectfully. And some officers who don't know what they're doing, which is quite common, will try to push back with me and say, excuse me, XYZ, I'm just doing my job. Well, you actually are not, because it ain't your job. Okay? And I am that attorney that is quick to call a supervisor. I will call a supervisor in a hot minute. When I go to my interviews, I have all my statutes that I'm quick to cite to, and I will read it word for word. So the officer knows I ain't the one. All right, you guys. Okay, guys, it's been 30 minutes. I gotta go. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing day. If you wanted to ask a question, but you were too shy, send me a DM. If it means that we may have to have a more detailed conversation, then we can move on to book a consultation. Otherwise, I really do love coming on here and really just sharing information that a lot of times I feel is so hard for people to kind of get a hold of, or just kind of break it down in layman's and super, super easy terms. The immigration process feels so complicated to so many, and I get it. It certainly felt complicated to me when we were immigrating to the United States. But after doing this for 12 years and having gone through it, coming in with my parents and then my marriage green card through my husband, and then practicing for 12 years, I feel fortunate to be in a position to really pass on the information from an immigrant's perspective with a little bit of like lawyer touch. So I'm not just talking based on what I've experienced. I'm telling you based on what the law is and what the process is, because I also have that viewpoint. All right, lovelies. So I'll see you guys on here tomorrow. Bye.